Good evening, everyone. Tonight is the Town Council regular meeting, Wednesday, February 16th, 2022 at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Rose Room. Can we all stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get to visitors, we're going to need to amend our agenda for the addition of the fire department apparatus purchasing plan. We could probably just add it to number 5.
5A or 5B?
Yeah, do it to 5A. So we're going to set them on both dates. Do we have a motion?
I'll move it.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Thank you. Next up is visitors. Are there any visitors that would like to be recognized at this time? Any visitors? All right, move on to the approval of the minutes for the February 2nd, 2022 meeting. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Thank you. Appointments, reappointments. There are none on the agenda for this night's or for this evening's meeting. So we will move on to 5 and 5A, which is the scheduling of a town meeting for ARPA funds and for the fire department apparatus purchasing plan for March 2nd, 2022 at 6 p.m. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move it.
A second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
What was the date of that again?
March 2nd, 6 p.m. All right, move on to item number 6, which is the charter revision. I talked with Carl briefly about this. Our charter indicates that within 5 years of the last revision that we can put together another commission. So I just wanted to open it up and kind of have a discussion about that. Maybe have Carl just explain how we would go about setting this up as we would move forward with it.
Okay. The charter, and was included in the agenda, states that the town council shall appoint a charter study commission not later than 5 years from the effective date of this charter. So setting up a charter revision commission is a statutory process. There are specific timelines to set the wheels in motion, which come from an initiating vote from this body or a petition. So if the council wants to start that process, it would be normal for you to put together a resolution telling the Charter Revision Commission if there's specific things you want them to look at, identify what those things are. You then have to make appointments. There's a recipe in terms of who can be appointed. It can be 5 up from not fewer than 5, but not more than 15 electors. Not more than 1/3 of the group can come from one party. Or hold other public office in the municipality. Not more than a bare majority of whom shall be members of one political party. So it would be anybody could be in it as long as they're an elector of the town. But it goes back to the council setting up a charge. So if there are items, issues, whatnot, that really should be baked into the resolution that you pass to hand off to the Charter Revision Commission.
Is there an interest on the council to set this up?
We have to, right?
Within 5 years.
Oh.
So we have time, but, sorry?
Was it 2018? 19. November 19th is the effective date of the charter.
So if Dennis recalls, when we went through the last charter revision process and we changed over to the town manager form of government, most of the speakers that came in, other town managers from other towns, did make the recommendation that within a year, going through the town manager change in process, that you do set up a charter revision committee because there's always little bugs within your charter that need to be worked out through the process. So that was a recommendation. Whether or not we have bugs and those things need to be discussed, I guess is another question, but it was advised by other town managers.
So you're saying set it up sooner?
Well, that was the advisement.
Anyone else? No?
I think it's a process to look at what is working, what needs tweaking, what are things that are problematic, that are not adding to the efficiency of operations, things of that nature.
So at this point, then, we would ask then the council if they're interested in moving forward with this charter revision, right? And then put a resolution together? Because that would be the,
You'd put together a resolution, but the resolution should give the committee a charge. So if there are things, bugs, as Christine used, that you want looked at, you should have those things included in the resolution. So that would be a process where the council should be thinking of what are
So
bugs or
which comes
issues that-
first, the committee or the resolutions?
Committee comes after the resolution.
After.
So
After.
you go through a process as a council, what are bugs or things that
Yep,
aren't
yep,
working,
got it.
flag it, that goes into a resolution.
Got
The
it.
resolution becomes a charge for the committee.
Right.
The resolution appoints the committee, which has membership, then things go from there.
Yep.
Is that a special workshop for
yeah,
that?
we can set up a workshop for that, if that's something everybody's interested. Can you two stop talking?
I would say that the Charter Revision Committee, the previous one, did a phenomenal job. I mean, they beat that charter to death. You guys,
Set up a-
Thank you.
you know,
All right, so you want to send out an email then?
Sure.
Okay, so Mary will send out an email to everybody, and we'll work on putting a workshop together for that. Okay? All right, item,
Is it a workshop?
what's that?
Who said a workshop for the?
Yeah. Everybody good? The Morgan School Musical Theater Program ad, we did this last year, not last year, right?
We've done it previously.
Previously, the past couple years because of COVID. So in the past, we've done $175 for a full-page ad in the musical theater book. So I would just look for a motion to do that this year as well.
so moved.
A second?
Second.
Comments, questions? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Thank you. Finance Director's report. Yes,
Are we gonna deal with the fire department apparatus?
we did it.
March
The
2nd.
motion to amend it.
I guess I got stuff
We're
talking over here. My guns.
Listen, you two are getting separated next week.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Chris, you're going over there. We're moving this
Okay,
around.
now I remember. That was, I didn't realize that was gonna be the
March
same town
2nd,
hearing
yep,
for
same day.
both of them,
Yep.
fire department and apparatus.
This is the old age side,
And this is being televised, thanks.
senior citizen side.
I'm gonna get
Carol,
killed.
you're gonna have to come over here.
I'm gonna get killed at home tonight, I think.
Carol doesn't want anything to do with that side.
I'm good.
All right, Finance Director's report. We have a request that everybody has received through the Finance Department for an increase of $11,100 for miscellaneous expenditures, and then decreasing the employer Social Security account by the $1,100. Is there any questions on this before we look for a motion to approve? Okay, motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second. Whatever. Third.
Comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Thank you. Now we will move on to number 9, which is the council discussions, future projects, and correspondence.
There's another.
No.
There's 2?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. And then Susie.
Town insurance,
yes, so the second one is also finance 7,400, insurance other EE, and then from the employer Social Security for 7,400.
so moved.
Second?
Second.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? All right, thank you. And next is Sue.
Hi, good evening, everybody. All right, I'm here to present the January results, which you have my packet. January is the 7th month of fiscal year '22. Revenues during the month were $16.2 million and expenses were $5.8 million. Of the $16.2 million in revenues, 90% of that was from tax collections, which was $14.7 million, which brings the current tax levy at 96% of budget and compared to 94% last year. The remaining revenues in January were 2 state grants that we received, 1.2 million for the second installment of the ECS, the Education Cost Sharing Grant, and 133,000 for the Town Aid Road Project Grant. Those were received as budgeted and as expected. In addition, town service revenues were about 84,000. Half of that was town clerk fees, the majority of it being real estate conveyance taxes, followed by 17,000 of building fees, and then the remaining 20,000 of town service revenues were for transfer station fees, police contractual, and boat slips. Year-to-date revenues for the 7 months are 51.5 million, 88% of the total year's budget. That's in line with the prior year as well. Expenses during the month of January were 5.9 million. 2.5 of that was for education, payroll, and operating expenses, and 2.4 million was for debt principal payments that I mentioned were going to be paid in January at last month's meeting. 700,000 of it was for payroll and fringe benefits expenses, and then the remaining 300,000 of the expenses for the month are detailed in my report, and you can take a look at that. But they're basically the contractual and recurring utility expenses. Further, you can take a look at those. Year-to-date expenses for the 7 months are 35 million, which is 60% of the budget, which is again in relation to the prior years as well. Unrestricted investment balances are 23 million at the end of January. Some other cash flow items to note that in addition to the debt payments, we also paid the $4 million ban note, which was the 1-year note that the town had outstanding. We paid that at the end of January because that was due. And at the beginning of February, we received the bonding proceeds of 5.2 million. I further explain that in my report as well, and you're well aware of that. The contingency account is 143,000 now, and that was adjusted for the transfer that was approved at the last meeting for the $10,000 to the police vehicle maintenance account. And the fund balance has no change. And you have the calculation of that, which is also in the back of the report. So that concludes my report. Any questions?
Any questions for Sue? No? All set. Thank you, Sue.
I don't have a question for Sue, but I do have a question for you as far as we've talked about it, the unassigned fund balance. I understand that from last year, I remember hearing that Carl liked to keep 15% in there for the bond rating, and it's climbed up now to 26.3.
I think if you look in the budget, that's included in the budget. There's a discussion in the budget, so we'll talk about that when we go through the workshop of how that's being spent now.
Okay, great. That's tomorrow?
It's the capital plan, so I don't know what the...
Okay, got it. Yeah.
We'll talk about it during the budget workshop.
Okay, great.
Anyone else? Okay, move on to number 9, which is the council discussions, future projects and correspondence. Anybody have anything they would like to discuss?
I'd like to discuss our guest last time, Mr. Nuzzo, who came and complained about the parking lot and the downtown. There are a lot of people who would like to see beautification in that downtown area. And I'd like council to think about what it is that we can do. I'm really sorry about the facade not being applicable to us. That's a great loss. But I do know that there are not many people in town who wouldn't thank us for improving our downtown area.
This has been a discussion we've had previous council as well for couldn't tell you how long, probably since we were seated, about the downtown and what we'd like to do there. We understand these people come in, we understand that they have businesses there, but the business owners are the ones that also have to be involved. We don't own those buildings. The town doesn't own them. We cannot make them do something to their building that they don't want to sign up for. So the issue becomes is that we understand we would like it to look better, and beautification and do those things, but it becomes, what do? We don't own the building, so we can't have Carl walk over there and say, okay, we're going to start ripping this apart. We want to make it look nicer. The facade program that we had, that the town got, the grant, the $125,000, limited number of people. There's always the talk about what we would like to do to our downtown. But the unfortunate part is getting them to do it, and we can't do those steps for them. I mean, this conversation's going on forever, and I mean, I don't know, what options there are to make these people do something. I don't know. I mean, that's the problem. I mean, it's, we live in a town where we don't own these buildings.
May I just suggest a place to start is maybe if the town were to make a step, maybe other businesses might jump in. And a spot that's in 2 different studies is along Indian River. One of the things that we're going to get are rain gardens on the bank, but that last study that was done for the STEEP grant took away from, I believe it was a 2011 study for downtown renovation, and it involved the bank, a guardrail, and beautification of part of that parking lot that is owned by the town that is very obvious as we drive west to Madison. I just suggest if we start there as a town, perhaps it might be something, and we have the plans, it might be something that someone would follow through. I remember just a year ago when one person painted, was it Jerry Weiss?
Mm-hmm.
3 other people painted the front. It just takes a little bit, and I think that maybe we might be able to.
So what are you suggesting we do?
I'm suggesting that project.
Which would be
The
what?
project that is in Donna Nazarko's latest study.
And then we'd have to budget for that too, though. So there's a whole bunch of that comes into play with any of these projects.
It's nice that the rain garden is going in on the bank. That's a nice start.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I mean, again, any project that we want to, dig our hands into and start working on,
Okay.
ultimately at the end of the day, where's the money coming from to do the construction and to do the replacement? So, I mean, it's certainly things we can talk about, but I mean, the bigger step is where do we go from there? We can all sit here and be in agreement. We want to do that. Okay, good. Now what do we do?
Well, it is budget season, so I guess this would
Well,
be the
but
good
again,
time.
yeah, and you'll find out. Budget season is,
Yeah.
we live in a town where people, tend to, past 2 years have been great. Carl's done a great job, and, we're still trying to kind of coming out of COVID and do what we can to limit these tax increases to the people. So, I mean, that you will see that coming forward, but that's an important part of this as well. So, I mean, those are conversations we'll have, and, but again, involvement. We need involvement from the property owners. The business owners, I get it. Mike Nuzzo, no, been in my office 3 times, complains about it all the time. His landlord does nothing. If I need anything done or anything's broken, I pay for it, Chris, because it's my business and I need it to work. I know. So that's his problem. Like, I mean, he's got to get his landlord on board with kind of what he would like to do, and his landlord apparently could care less about what's going on, because Mike pays his rent every month. So it's hard. I mean, we've had these conversations at length, so we guess we can start looking into those things.
I
And just
would like,
continue.
I would like us to maybe lead the way, maybe along the Indian River bank. It's a beautiful place. It might be a good start.
Okay.
I don't want to say it's an issue, that there's some challenges. The town did bond and also got grant funding for that project and expended all that money. So the final amount of money went towards the fire department side. So ultimately, it would be a challenge for the town manager to look for additional funding unless we're self-funding it, because we've already went out and expended the funds for that specific project, especially under bonding. So that's going to be challenging. So we do have a master plan for that area, beautification. The next phase of it would have to be the engineering, and we haven't done that leg of it. Whether or not, in terms of capital and moving forward, we want to do that, that would be something to put into the budget. But we don't have estimates at this point. I guess we'd have to ask our town manager to look into historically where we spent the money and or how moving forward we can utilize town funds since the project was bounded.
Yeah, I think you would have to armor the side that has no stone on it, where some of it is washed away, so the parking lot side doesn't have the same treatment as the fire department side. So to do that, work through DEP permitting and the like, town engineer suggested 7 figures.
Say, with infrastructure perhaps, to stop the erosion of the Indian River, maybe.
That's chasing a grant.
Well, we'll have to wait and see, yeah. Yeah. Could be a place to start.
Flagging it is fine, it needs to have monies attached to it too.
And again, since we already bonded for the project, I don't know how the town goes about the next approach, since that was already supposed to be completed under that, I don't know.
It's a big lift.
Anyone else? No? All right. Chairman's report, I have nothing to report this evening, so we will move on to the town manager's report.
So you have my written report. Included a couple of things to call your attention to. Yukon Climate Corps has accepted Clinton as the community that they will be working on. Had a preliminary conversation with the students that will be helping define an initial resiliency plan, looking at coastal properties and helping us respond to some of the issues that were flagged in the natural hazards mitigation study. So this is an opportunity to get some no-cost engineering work by Yukon students to help us at least move forward and lay some of the foundational stones for a future resiliency plan and other topics that we might want to get into. The project will follow their spring semester, so they should be wrapping that up into April, beginning of May. That is when they would be done with their report. Ongoing monitoring of the state budget now that it is gone. The governor has put out his piece. It will go through the legislative process in the General Assembly. I did flag for you, and the media has covered also, that there is some concern about the governor's proposal to provide some tax relief on motor vehicles by lowering the statewide mill rate cap for, at a minimum. It does not backfill the town, so we do have a revenue loss under his program, so that becomes an issue going forward for how we balance our budget, or whether the General Assembly is going to modify that in some fashion that holds municipalities whole. I think that's the intent. It's just a matter of making sure that they have numbers in their budget that back up where every municipality is going with motor vehicles. Beneficial reuse of the former landfill site. I flagged this at a prior meeting. I've had conversations with a self-performing engineering company. They have a model which has been used by a number of municipalities in the state, where the engineering company is bringing in fill because they're working on other construction projects. The fill meets a standard established by DEEP. They would bring the fill in, provide the cap, and go through the regulatory process with DEEP so that we could actually finally have the landfill capped, which then sets the platform for beneficial reuse of the site to do something else. I know there's been strong interest from solar developers to put something out there. The problem with solar developers is there's not enough money in the deal for them to fund capping the landfill. So if we cap the landfill, there's going to be market interest in doing solar out at the landfill, which would provide rental income back to the town for that potential use. So at a minimum, we would go out for bid or request for proposals for firms to assist us in capping. I would assume this firm would respond. I don't know who else would respond, but at least we could put it out for competitions purposes to see whether we can get any other market interest beyond this one entity to come in and deal with the landfill. One issue that was pointed out by this entity is the desire to do borings on the site in order to assess what's in the landfill. So you take a series of samples at different locations to see what's in there, so at least you have an understanding of what makes up the mass that's in the landfill. It goes into a go, no-go decision depending on what's found. For this particular company, they only encountered it once in Massachusetts, never in Connecticut, where there was something in the ground that caused concern to the municipality and to them as a vendor. The decision was to work around that area, but it helps us understand what's in that landfill, and it helps them understand it for a capping plan. So either that's an upfront expense that we would do, or you bake it into the RFP process. So this at least provides an opportunity to get moving forward on trying to find a reuse for the landfill site. spoken to several vendors at this point in time, and it never happens because you don't get to the point of capping the facility. Obviously, DEP has standards for quality of fill that can go in. We would probably want to have our own engineer looking at reports for the quality of the fill that's going in. Whether you know or don't know, there was an incident in another municipality further down going towards New York where they took fill and the fill was seriously contaminated with PCBs and the like. A certain element of criminal behavior that was part of that discussion. It's a rather lengthy public record on not assessing the quality of fill for a project went on in that town. So we have state standards, and we would have our own engineer provide us with belt and suspenders to protect our property. So if that would be the one thing I would look to move forward on. The other item to call your attention to is something that the Public Works Director brought to me today. The notice to proceed for the Carter Hill Bridge needs to be signed. Carter Hill Bridge is funded 80% but from the federal government. So the Department of Transportation wants to get that moving along. It was envisioned that that would start April 1st. However, the Carter Hill Bridge obviously it's proximate to the ongoing Pleasant Valley Bridge repair. Pleasant Valley is supposed to be done by April. Progress has been made by that vendor, so a detour plan has been developed. Everyone's comfortable with the detour plan. Public has yet to drive the detour, but if we don't give the notice to proceed, we're jeopardizing the 80% grant on the cost for the Carter Hill Bridge. So it's one of these things, you've got to get it moving forward. And obviously there'll be some discomfort while we wait for contractor on Pleasant Valley to finish the bridge. I think his biggest hurdle is paving the surface, and that's a matter of when do asphalt plants go back into operation. Normally the spring. It seems to be warm right now. Hopefully we could have one bridge open by the time the other one closes, but there will be a degree of inconvenience, and I want to make sure that you know that that's a potential in this particular case.
So we good with Carl moving forward with the landfill issue? Speaking to people up there about that?
Yes.
We would issue a request for proposals.
Okay.
And just a little clarification on solar. The last conversations, and this was probably 4 years ago, because the main line is so far from the site, it was never feasible or financially prudent for them to make that connection. I don't know if that's changed in your conversation with them?
Yes, it has. There's new subsidies, so there's money in the deal that would pay for some of that. Or it's a matter of tweaking the lease payment that comes from the entity. So there are enough subsidies that would support paying that, and I've flagged that with everybody, and none of them have broken out in a rash about it. They all say, don't worry, there's enough money in there for that. So there's not enough money in there for them to cap it.
And then just on the car payments, my understanding is there's going to be a cap at 29 mil, and that there would be municipal aid back to the towns.
It's short. It's short because OPM calculated that based on the current year, not the year that we're building our budget around. So as a result, it's not dollar for dollar. We're short.
I think everybody's acknowledged that up there. Yeah.
Right, and I think every town is short. So my assumption is Probst or somebody is going to go in and fix it. But it is something that needs to be
Yeah.
fixed and monitored so we know what our budget looks like when we're passing it.
Fortunately, when the budget hits, there falls. It always falls in a bad place for us too, so.
Correct. And we're not getting hit on ECS, so that's positive. But it's a hit is a hit.
Dennis?
Yeah, I just go back to the capping of the
Landfill.
landfill. If I'm memory correct, didn't we do a study about 5-6 years ago when somebody else, and we got funds from the state and did a grant, and I believe at the time, I think it was just before your regime, Christian, I think it was during Willie's, that we did a study on that. In any way, could that help us, Carl, to move the project along?
Sure, there were
Or
borings.
is that study
at
not
that
good
time.
any longer?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a dated study, and it's a document that we would share with whoever we would be working with. The desire to do more up-to-date borings and sampling, I think, is
Okay.
probably prudent for anybody we'd be working with, given the vintage of the study that was done.
Because I thought it was a pretty extensive study. I'm not sure. I thought there was borings and everything done during that one. If I remember correctly, there are white pipes or something up in the ground up there at the old land use. And just a thought.
You know, I'm aware of the report, I've read the report. It's something that I've shared with the solar entities that I've spoken with, and so they're aware of what that original assessment was.
Anything else for Carl? All right, we'll move on to item number 12, Town Council Committee Liaison Reports. Does anybody have anything to report?
I have a P&Z, and it's, Carl already talked about the, working with the Yukon, that John Guskowski was excited about. And then John Guskowski talked about the regional housing plan moving forward to the local phase. And on March 7th, there's going to be a Clinton program, for lack of a better word, led by John. And then Kathy talked about the applications continuing in at a tremendous increase over last year. And still roofing. That's about it. That's about it.
Dennis?
Police Commission 2 nights ago, again, budgetary wise, everything is going along fine. The major portion of the night was a discussion about the golf cart application from that group over there at Iroquois and whatever. And I guess the traffic association, traffic authority has asked the chief to put together some type of resolution that they could look at. And I guess at initial talk during that night, 2 nights ago, was that probably they would entertain a, nothing was set in stone yet, but they were leaning forward to maybe giving a 1-year trial to up there. But again, they wanted the chief to present a detailed what it would encompass. I understand it's inspection of golf carts and things of this nature. So anyway, that was the gist of the entire meeting mostly. Other than that, it's nothing remarkable.
Thank you, Dennis. Anybody else?
EDC had a meeting with the 6th or the 8th. They spoke of the Goodwin School having a mobile lab. They wanted it to move into the Morgan. They had it, I believe, over in Westbrook, and they wanted to get it so it would come in the Morgan. They were, again, talking about the facade improvement program and how their applicants are having difficulty getting 2 contractors qualified. I don't know what to tell you. Everyone's busy. And they also were talking about possibly looking at getting some, either through YouTube or through some public access TV, snippets on town for tourism, town businesses and such. And I think they were thinking of using this guy's firm to do it.
All right. Okay. Good.
That was it.
All right. Anybody else? All right, so now we will look for a motion to go into executive session and invite Carl and Mary.
So moved.
Second? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Yeah.
All right, we are now back from executive session. We'll move on to item number 14, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Thank you again, everyone.
Talk about the number of the plan.